Interesting facts about the Bible, part 108. Did you know that the Bible tells us exactly what is sin and what isn't sin? Unfortunately, with so many Christians and churches, they were taught that the law has been done away with. It has no value. Therefore, they have no idea what God has listed as sin and hasn't listed as sin. And many congregations are starting to create their own list of commandments of what people must or must not do, what's considered sin and what isn't. I have been told things like, I have to cover my hair, I'm not allowed to wear makeup, it's a sin to drink alcohol, it's a sin for a man to either shave his beard or not shave his beard. I've heard a long list of things that denominations say is a sin or isn't. But the Bible tells us specifically what is or isn't a sin. For example, alcohol is never something that is forbidden. In fact, they said that Yeshua was both a drunkard and a glutton because he came eating and drinking. Well, they wouldn't have called him a drunkard if he wasn't drinking wine, so be careful what you call a sin because Yeshua was pure. All scripture says is don't be a drunkard. It is very dangerous to add to scripture, to take a Bible verse, use it out of context, and say something is a sin. The very first time we see people adding to a commandment of God is here in Genesis 2, starting with verse 16. Then Adonai Elohim commanded the man, saying, From all the trees of the garden you are most welcome to eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you must not eat, for when you eat from it, you most assuredly will die. Eve is made after Adam is given this commandment, so presumably Adam was the one that told Eve this commandment. In the next chapter, it says, The woman said to the serpent, Of the fruit of the trees we may eat, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God said, You must not eat of it, and you must not touch it, or you will die. So now we have a fence around the law that God gave, not to eat it. Now she can't touch it. But when Eve reached up and touched that fruit, did anything happen to her? Was that when she had the consequence? No. So how easy is it to make the leap then? Well, if I didn't die from touching it, I'm not going to die from eating it. And then how easy it becomes to break God's true commandment. Many people point out that Jezebel, here in verse 30, when Jehu arrived into town, she painted her eyes and dressed her hair and looked out the window. And they said, see, she wore makeup. So if you wear makeup, you're a Jezebel. This is what they miss. In verse 34, attend now to this cursed woman and bury her, for she was a king's daughter. She wasn't a streetwalker. She wasn't a harlot. She didn't dress as one. She dressed in her station. So she also would have been wearing long, modest dresses as part of being a king's daughter. So saying that because she wore makeup, you can't wear makeup would be like saying you can't wear modest gowns. This is how she would have dressed, not as a harlot. Nowhere in scripture does it say not to wear makeup. And most of the commandments that God gives us about don't be a drunkard, don't be a glutton, don't even look at a woman with lust in your heart, these are all commandments about self-control. Now, if you say, I don't want to even touch that because then it could lead to a sin, well, you are not developing self-control in yourself, which is one of the fruits of the Spirit. And that leads to things like a woman feeling she has to cover herself from head to toe, and a man feeling like if she doesn't do it, he doesn't have to have self-control, that he can just do what he wants to her because she wasn't modest. But that takes away from God's commandment. His whole thing is that a person must have self-control. So you're not supposed to drink to excess. You're not supposed to eat to excess. You're not supposed to look at a woman with lust, which isn't the same thing as thinking a woman is pretty. If ever anyone accuses you of a sin, you can always say, show me in scripture where God himself, Yeshua himself, commands this. Otherwise, it's not a sin. Yeshua does say, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. Same with your hand. He doesn't mean literally dismember yourself. He means if you personally have something in your life that causes you to sin, you can remove it. If you know that you're prone to being a drunkard, if you have any alcohol, you personally can remove that from your life. That does not mean you can impose that on everyone else.